Why does she keep choosing the same type of man over and over again? You've seen it before. Maybe you've even been the man she briefly entertains before circling back to another version of the same archetype. The careless rebel, the emotionally unavailable charmer, or the cold and distant figure who always leaves her chasing shadows. It can be maddening to watch. You ask yourself, is it me? Did I do something wrong? Am I just not enough? Here's the brutal truth. It isn't about you. Her choices are not simply a reflection of her preferences in the moment. They are echoes, deep echoes, of wounds that were planted long before you arrived. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, called this the repetition compulsion, the tendency of human beings to recreate the same painful patterns from their childhood, even when those patterns hurt them. She's not choosing him because he is better than you. She's choosing him because at an unconscious level, he feels familiar. And what is familiar often feels safe, even if it causes pain. That is the paradox. To her nervous system, a toxic cycle can feel like home, and so she repeats it over and over again. Today, we're diving deep into Freud's insight, not just to understand her, but to free yourself from the trap of personalizing her wounds. Because once you understand the psychology behind her choices, you stop blaming yourself and start seeing clearly.
To understand why she chooses the same kind of man again and again, even when it causes her pain, we turn to Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Freud introduced a concept called repetition compulsion. It describes the strange human tendency to unconsciously repeat old patterns, especially those tied to unresolved childhood wounds. Freud noticed something fascinating in his patients. A woman who had grown up with a distant or unreliable father would often find herself drawn again and again to men who were emotionally unavailable. A man raised by a critical mother might continually end up in relationships where he feels judged or belittled. These patterns weren't coincidences, they were compulsions. Beneath the surface, the psyche seeks to recreate familiar situations, even if they are harmful, as if trying to master them or rewrite the ending. This is where Freud's insight becomes so powerful. What feels like choice is often not a conscious decision at all. It's an echo of childhood, a reenactment of early emotional experiences. The unconscious pulls the strings, and the individual simply follows, unaware that the script has already been written long before adulthood. For Freud, the child's relationship with their primary caregivers sets the blueprint for adult love. If a girl learned early on that love comes with distance, rejection, or chaos, her unconscious might compel her to seek those same dynamics in her partners, not because she enjoys suffering, but because on some deep level, familiarity feels like safety. Even if it hurts, it feels known. What Freud revealed is that attraction often isn't about what's good for us. It's about what's familiar to us. And familiarity, even when it's destructive, can exert a stronger pull than reason, logic, or even self-preservation. So, when you wonder why she keeps returning to the same type of man, the aloof one, the toxic one, the one who mirrors her childhood wounds, Freud would argue it's not about him, and it's not even about you. It's about her unconscious attempting to resolve unfinished business from her past. She isn't just choosing a partner, she's reenacting a story that began in her earliest years. This is the tragedy and the brilliance of repetition compulsion. Until the wound is made conscious and healed, the cycle continues. The players may change, but the role remains the same. And that's where your freedom begins, realizing that her choices are less about who you are and more about the shadows of her history playing out in real time. At the heart of this discussion is the idea that unconscious childhood wounds drive adult choices in ways most people don't even recognize. The pattern is rarely random. It is often painfully predictable. Take a woman whose father abandoned her emotionally when she was young.
She might grow up feeling unworthy of stable love. When a man enters her life who mirrors that same emotional distance, she feels a pull, not because it's healthy, but because it feels familiar. This is the essence of Freud's repetition compulsion, a gravitational pull toward the very wounds that shaped us. This is not about intelligence or awareness. She can know consciously that her choices hurt her. She can say, "I always fall for the wrong guy." But awareness alone doesn't free her. The unconscious doesn't care about awareness. It cares about repeating what it knows. To her inner child, chaos is safer than the unknown. Now here's a paradox. You may come into her life offering stability, genuine affection, and consistent love. And instead of embracing you, she may push you away, or worse, become disinterested. Why? Because stability feels foreign, and what is foreign feels unsafe. This is where many men fall into despair. They assume, "I wasn't good enough." But that's not the truth. The truth is, you didn't align with her unconscious pattern. You didn't activate her wound, and so her psyche didn't know what to do with you. This is why understanding repetition compulsion is so important. It frees you from internalizing her rejection. Her choices are not a reflection of your worth, they are reflections of her wounds. Until she does the work of individuation and healing, she will keep orbiting the same destructive cycles no matter who stands before her. Freud reminds us that attraction isn't just chemistry. Often, it's memory disguised as desire. It's the child within her seeking resolution in the wrong places. And unless she faces those wounds, she will keep confusing pain with love. You've probably felt this firsthand. Maybe you gave her everything, your consistency, your loyalty, your effort, and still, she chose someone else. Not just once, but again and again. And the most painful part? She didn't just choose anyone else. She chose men who were clearly worse for her. Men who didn't care, men who left her guessing, men who broke her down, only for her to crawl back for more. And you sit there, asking yourself, how could she not see the difference? Maybe you were the nice guy who offered her stability. Maybe you were the loyal one who thought, if I just show her I'm different, she'll finally recognize real love. And for a while, it might have seemed like she did. She smiled, she leaned in, she seemed interested. But then this cycle returned. Suddenly, she grew cold. Suddenly, she says she needed space. And not long after, she was back with a man who treated her like an afterthought. It leaves you with a hollow ache. You replay the moments in your head, searching for what you could have done differently. Maybe you think you weren't exciting enough, mysterious enough, or strong enough. But deep down, you know the truth. You were more than enough. The problem wasn't you. It was the pull of her past. That's what repetition compulsion feels like from the outside. It feels like rejection, but it's really just rerun. You're not competing with other men, you're competing with her childhood ghosts. If you felt this, know that you're not alone. Countless men have been in your shoes, trying to love a woman who cannot break free from her own unconscious patterns. And once you understand this, something inside you shifts. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and you start seeing what's unresolved in her. Here's the paradox most men never realize. The harder you try to rescue her from her patterns, the deeper you end up reinforcing them. You step in thinking, "I'll show her real love, I'll prove I'm different from the men who hurt her." But in trying to prove yourself, you take on the exact role her unconscious expects, the man who fails to break the cycle. Why? Because the unconscious isn't searching for healing, it's searching for repetition. To her psyche, replaying the same drama feels safer than risking the unknown of a new script. When you try to fix her or hold on tighter, she doesn't interpret it as love. She interprets it as pressure, as unfamiliar, as something that doesn't fit the story she's been unconsciously telling herself since childhood. That's the deeper truth. Her choices are not a referendum on your value. They are a reenactment of her past. Every time she goes back to the same type of man, it's not because he is superior to you. It's because to her unconscious mind, he represents the unfinished business of her wounds. And here lies the most painful paradox. Your strength, your stability, your devotion, the very things that make you different are the very things that may feel threatening to her pattern, because they challenge it, they disrupt it. And for someone who has lived her whole life in repetition, disruption feels unsafe, even if it's healthier. The revelation is this: you cannot outlove a wound. You cannot be consistent enough, patient enough, or selfless enough to undo the gravitational pull of repetition compulsion. That healing is hers to choose, not yours to provide. But while this truth may sting, it's also liberating. It means you can stop personalizing her rejection. You can stop bending yourself into knots to prove you're worthy. You can stop seeing her choices as evidence of your inadequacy. Instead, you can see them clearly for what they are: echoes of her past, projected onto her present. Once you embrace this revelation, you are free. Free from guilt, free from chasing, free from cycles that were never yours to carry. And with that freedom comes a new kind of strength, the strength of a man who no longer mistakes her wounds for his reflection.
So, what do you do with all of this? Once you recognize that her choices are rooted in childhood wounds and unconscious repetition, how do you respond in a way that protects your own strength and integrity? The first and most important step: do not personalize her choices. Understand them, yes, even empathize with her struggle, but never confuse her patterns with your worth. Her pull toward destructive men isn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of her inner world, still haunted by unfinished business. Second, don't try to fix her. This is the trap many men fall into, believing that if they just love her hard enough, stay patient long enough, or prove themselves deeply enough, she'll finally break free of her cycle. But Freud's insight is clear. Unconscious repetition is stronger than conscious will. Unless she chooses healing herself, nothing you do can rewrite her script. Your role is not savior. Your role is sovereign. Third, set your boundaries. Ask yourself, do I want to invest my energy in someone who is not ready to invest in themselves? If the answer is no, then the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. Boundaries are not about punishing her. They're about protecting you. Finally, choose yourself. Don't let her cycles define how you see relationships, women, or even your own future. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt, use the experience to ground yourself deeper in who you are. Build a life that is rich, meaningful, and rooted in your values, so you're no longer swayed by someone else's unresolved patterns. The takeaway is simple, but it demands strength. Her wounds are not your burden. By refusing to personalize, refusing to fix, and refusing to lose yourself, you step out of her cycle and into your own power. That is where real freedom begins.
Imagine what happens when you finally stop personalizing her choices. Instead of spiraling into endless self-analysis, was I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? Why didn't she stay? You anchor yourself in a new truth. Her patterns are hers, not mine. In this shift, rejection stops feeling like a verdict on your worth. It becomes data, a window into her wounds, not a mirror of your inadequacy. Suddenly, the emotional weight that once crushed you begins to lift. You don't waste energy trying to decode every word she said, every action she took, every man she picked after you. You recognize the cycle for what it is, an unconscious loop she's repeating, and you no longer volunteer to be caught in it. Your relationships transform too. Instead of approaching women with insecurity or fear of abandonment, you move with calm certainty. You're not afraid of whether she chooses you or not, because you know your value is not on trial. You stop negotiating your worth through her approval. That shift alone radiates strength, and ironically, it makes you far more attractive to women who are actually ready to meet you with depth. Life outside of relationships changes as well. With the energy you once spent agonizing over why she chose him instead of me, you redirect that fuel into your own pursuits. Fitness, finances, friendships, passions. Your identity is no longer tethered to being chosen by someone stuck in her own cycle. It's rooted in building a life you're proud of, one that stands solid whether she stays, leaves, or repeats her pattern with someone else. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to save her, you save yourself. You step out of her loop of repetition compulsion and into your own evolution. You're no longer a passive character in her unresolved story. You're the author of your own. That's the identity shift, from wounded responder to sovereign man, from someone orbiting her choices to someone grounded in his own, from trying to heal her to living free.
Now, I want you to pause and really sit with this. How much of your energy has been drained by personalizing her choices? How many nights have you replayed the same scenario, convinced that if you had been smarter, stronger, or more exciting, she would have stayed? That cycle ends when you see the truth. Her choices are reflections of her wounds, not indictments of your worth. If this message resonated, then this is your invitation to break the cycle, not just in her life, but in yours. No more tying your identity to whether a woman stays or leaves. No more being cast in her unconscious drama. You are here to reclaim your ground, and that starts by refusing to personalize what was never about you. So here's what I want you to do. Comment, break the cycle below if you're ready to step out of these unconscious loops and stand in your own power. Share this with a friend who keeps chasing the same painful patterns. He needs to hear this truth just as much as you do. And if you want more insights like this, subscribe, because every week we strip away illusions, expose the hidden forces shaping attraction, and show you how to step into your strength as a man. This is your moment. Break the cycle. Choose freedom.